Hello everyone! In this 14th installment of the trip into the mysterious world of forgotten languages, we are taking a look at Roswell, the mother of all UFO theories, as well as on the possibility of aliens creating us, or us creating the aliens. On the 23rd of April of 2014, the website posted the article titled Poisoned Apples, Roswell Incident and the Original Sin. It's quite the title, isn't it? My imagination already went wild when I saw it. We have heard that some of the alleged UFO crashes, most notably the Kingman event of 1953, may have not been really crashes but intentional landings. Then we also had one of the most famous crop circle events depicting what looks like a grey alien and a decoded cryptic message encoded in the circle. Beware the bearers of false gifts. Could the Roswell event be indeed a poisoned apple, a gift of exotic technology and biologics we had no clue what to do with, but something we would certainly desire to study and recreate? Let's look at the English parts of the text, but before that, the first paragraph in the constructed language has a mention of event STO, which I believe stands for Standard Timeline in the world of forgotten languages. It mentions Sol 3, which is the third planet from the Sun, so the Earth, and the number 1440, which I do not see a clear reference to. We also have an image of the mysterious communication system called the Cassini Diskus. The actual English text is a summary of events from year 1947, so let's quote it verbatim. 1947 March, the 6th. XB-45, the first US 4-engine jet bomber, makes its first test flight from Morocco, California. The 16th, Convair liner, the first US twin-engine pressured airplane tested. The 20th, a 180 metric ton blue whale, a record caught in South Atlantic. The 21st, President Harry Truman signs Executive Order 9835, requiring all federal employees to have allegiance to the United States. 1947 April, the 4th, the largest group of sunspots on record. The 8th, the largest recorded sunspot, 7,000 observed. The 9th, the Atomic Energy Commission confirmed. Also the 9th, tornadoes striking West Texas and Oklahoma kill 169, injuring 1,300. The 16th, explosions and fire on French ship Grand Camp, and a massive explosion and fire kills 522 in Texas City. The 19th, French ship explodes in Texas City Harbor, kills about 522. 1947 May, the 1st, radar for commercial and private planes first demonstrated. Rear Admiral Roscoe H. Hillenkotter, USN, becomes the third director of CIA. 22nd, the first US ballistic missile fired. The 31st, Eastern DC-4 crashes between Fort Deposit and Perryville, Maryland, kills 53. 1947 June, the 1st, photosensitive glass developed. The 19th, the first plane, F-80, to exceed 1,004 km per hour at Albert Boyd, Morocco, California. The 24th, flying saucers sighted over Mount Rainier by pilot Kenneth Arnold. The 27th, the highest temperature, 36.8 degrees centigrade, recorded in De Beeld, the Netherlands. 1947, the 6th, the AK-47 goes into production in the Soviet Union. The 7th, the alleged and disputed Roswell UFO incident. The 22nd, minus 13 degrees centigrade at Charlotte Pass in New South Wales. This is the Australian record. The 23rd, the first US Navy Air Squadron of jets at Quonset Point, Rhode Island. The 25th, US Air Force, Navy and War Department formed the US Department of Defense. The 25th also, the US Department of Army created, and the next day, the Department of Defense forms and the National Security Act formally establishes CIA. What a list of events we have here. Between the unusual solar activity and natural disasters, we have mentions of Admiral Hillenkotter, who is rumored to have been one of the original Majestic 12 group in charge of everything UFO related in the USA, to the famous Kenneth Arnold sighting which triggered the mass wave of sightings in 1947, and down to the Roswell event itself. The article also repeats what has been a long-standing staple of the broader UFO lore. It seems that in the aftermath of the Roswell event, President Truman initiated the reorganization of the armed forces. Most notably, he created the Department of Defense and propelled the US Air Force to a more prominent role in the light of sightings of mysterious objects. Even more importantly, the end of July saw the establishment of the CIA, which is repeatedly mentioned as one of the key actors in both exploring the UFO mysteries on behalf of the government and in the great cover-up of non-human intelligence and its interactions with us. Then we have a curious mention stuck between the two other Cassini Diskus sequences. This time we have the mention of humans being active influencers of physical reality through intent or will. This, on the other hand, fits into the occult paradigm. Possibly the most famous occultists of all time, Aleister Crowley, called magic the act of imparting changes to reality according to our will. The same notion appears time and time again at the junction of the UFO phenomenon, quantum physics, and consciousness. For example, there have been experiments carried out under laboratory conditions which seem to indicate that human consciousness and focused intent introduce a small skew to a completely random standard distribution of random number generators. The English text of the article says the following.
The random mechanical cascade has become an important tool in the ongoing study of the interactions of human consciousness with random physical systems. Taken in conjunction with the findings of our other experiments, the RMC results have confirmed the active role of human intention in the establishment of physical reality. There may or may not be limits to the periods that can be tracked. The present investigation has shown that 2 periods around 60 seconds can be followed with an averaged precision on the order of 1 part in 104. The manifestation of the effect is particularly remarkable in that it suggests that the timekeeper, operating at an unconscious level, periodically stimulates the conscious mind to provide calibration information, and that, for the 2 subjects investigated, 20 to 30% of watch consulting decisions are timekeeper-triggered.
The last part of this text made me think of Itzhak Bentov, who was a novel thinker and a largely self-taught scientist, who created an interesting theory of consciousness, according to which human mind is subject to vibrations inherent to our own body, and in the appropriate state we can link our consciousness, mind, whatever we wish to call it, to some timeless states, to the fabric of reality, which seems to be permeated by some kind of a consciousness field, and it affects reality in this way. Perhaps this is how the fabled C5 protocol works. Perhaps there is truth to meditating people being able to summon UFOs or convince them to appear, blink, and interact with a conscious observer. Does that mean that we create the aliens after a fashion? The bibliography of the article here also has some curious mentions, as we can see on the screen now. The other article we are going to cover was published on the 11th of June 2014 and had an elaborate title: Concreativity, when any observer is description dependent, Nikolaos Tsiopounis and the Scripted Life Mechanism. I tried looking around for Nikolaos and I found that he is a scientist who published articles in the International Journal of Management and Fuzzy Systems, for example, but there is not that much to latch onto in that avenue of research. In the text, we again return to the interface between our human experience and the microscopic quantum world, so let's hear it.
Modern physical descriptions of the quantum world point to the aspect of information as a relational quantity between elementary, quantum, processes that become meaningful only when an observer intervenes. Any description is observer-dependent, which unavoidably means a full description is observers-related. Human persons embody in the truthfulness of their relations something that is exactly revealing and, for that matter, mysterious indeed. The quality of their relations affects the nature/reality dialectic.
Thus, the text seems to be mostly philosophical in nature, and at the first glance there is nothing in particular that would link it to the UFOs, and while interesting, it seems to deviate from our line of query. Until the last paragraph, that is, where the mysterious Gizelians, the race of extraterrestrial and possibly interdimensional beings, who are behind the UFO events in year 1976 in Gizeli, Iran, and in 1996 in Varginha, Brazil, appear.
Even when humans do live scripted lives, the overall result cannot be predicted, for it depends on the relationships each human establishes with others. The one writing the individual scripts is also cursed, for his life also depends on the relationships he establishes with those whose life he scripts. In a close encounter, both Gizelians and humans are changed.
We experience a sort of a yin-yang moment here. While the first article hinted that we may be the ones responsible for aliens showing up in our experience, here we have the notion hinting that non-human intelligence may be scripting our life. This is in tune with the UFO as a control mechanism hypothesis proposed by Dr. Jacques Vallée, according to whom the non-human beings seem to introduce slight but meaningful adjustment to our philosophical, aesthetic, and zeitgeist perception over the course of history of humanity. Perhaps there is some kind of a delicate interaction at play in which we create the aliens in a sense, but they in turn also create us. At this point, it doesn't really matter if what we believe and whether they had a hand in our physical creation, through DNA manipulation, for example, or whether they are impacting our minds and psyche. What do you think about those topics, dear viewers? Do you think there is some strange and subtle way in which we are not normally conscious about the fact that we can and do use our consciousness to interact with reality, including the UFO phenomenon? Do you think this communication works one way, or is it more like being transmitters and receivers at the same time, both for us and for the aliens? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you can and wish to do so, like, subscribe and share the video. It helps spread the awareness of non-human intelligence and its interactions with us. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon in another video. Take care.